Here I am with Charles Marsala. Thank you, Charles, for being on there with me today. Appreciate you. And you are running for?
District 94 State Rep, Bill.
So that's right here where, of course, the audience is all over the state. Where is that? Where's 94?
It's a great district. It actually combines Jefferson Parish and Orleans. It goes from along the lake, from Bayou St. John to Houma, and out to Veterans, and along out in the city
Houma
park.
Boulevard.
Houma Boulevard. Somebody else has said that, Bill. I want to clarify. That's East Jefferson Hospital. So almost to Clearview. It's a few blocks to the east of Clearview, and the lakefront to Veterans, and then out to City Park.
So it's right here. That's a great little area of not only Metairie, it kind of overlaps Metairie, Jefferson Parish, and Orleans.
Right. It's like taking the 17th Street Canal and going 2 miles one direction and 2 miles the other direction.
So tell me now, let's for the audience here, what is your background? Because after the background, I want to ask why you're running for state rep.
All right. So, Bill, my background is I was born in New Orleans, and then we moved out to Metairie and pretty much Clearview and West Esplanade in 1967. So I was out there when West Esplanade was only one road. So I went to St. Francis Xavier. I was an Eagle Scout there. And then I went on to Jesuit, and I was student council president at Jesuit. I was an Explorer Scout at East Jefferson Hospital. And then I went to Tulane, became an engineer, and was looking to get in the oil industry. And that point in time, we had a crash. So I switched to tech and ended up in Silicon Valley for about 30 years. Became mayor of a town out there, was very active, involved with a lot of issues out there. I came back about a decade ago during the recession, and it seemed like it was a good time. Dad had passed away. I needed to step up with Mom. I came home, and then I started seeing things in Louisiana that could easily be improved. And then I've been working on that for about 8 years, whether it was the dead zone, opioid addiction, taxes. There's a lot of things in Louisiana that we could fix quickly.
So you were working on things just as a citizen, not even trying to be elected, but just as a citizen, you were trying to work on things to improve our community and our state.
Absolutely. When I was in the Boy Scouts, my dad was the counselor for citizenship in the community and citizenship in the nation, and conservation of natural resources. And those are my 3 big merit badges. So I come back here and I see things like Mom was having some health issues, and all of Dad's savings were going to get depleted. We don't protect senior savings. And I started looking, what do we do there? She was being overprescribed pills. And now we talk about the opioids. And I was on the forefront 8 years ago when I campaigned to bring attention to these issues.
So now you're working in the community as a citizen, and I'm stressing that again, and not as an elected official. So this shows that you have passion for service in your heart. Am I correct?
Well, yes, and Bill, and actually, it's a great lead into where we are here. We're out in West End, and as you know, roughly a year ago, I contacted you to help me resolve a problem out here. 500,000 gallons of fresh water a day were flowing into Lake Pontchartrain from a busted New Orleans sewage and water pipe. You were the first person to come out, brought attention. Your videos got attention of other media. Then they came out, then Sewage and Water Board, within 2 weeks, had it shut off. And that had been going on for 17 years since Katrina. And all it took was a story with you to get results.
I love it. I love it. I love the fact that you included me in on being involved there. So was that the catalyst, or what was the catalyst that made you jump into this state rep seat?
As I saw things going on, right now we're being hit with huge increases in property taxes, insurance, and in this seat here in particular, which is the hub of the district, we've got some issues where I'm looking at it, the solution's just like that water deal. 17 years, we fixed it in 2 weeks. We have other things here that we could fix in 2 weeks. West End has not been rehabbed in 25 years since Hurricane Georges, and the fix lies at the state level. So when I started talking to the governor's office, I was being pushed off. I was trying to figure out how to get the money to fix that retention wall, and it's really held up at the state level. And also, right now, crime is going crazy in New Orleans. We know that. But as it turns out, which crime started in 2020. And the year before that, my opponent, who's the incumbent, passed a bill to bring bars out here, to bring Bourbon Street out to West End. And this area here in the 1920s was where speakeasies, prostitution, and gambling all flourished. It's the furthest part to enforce. New Orleans has a weakened police department. Why would you bring back crime out here?
So you saw that issue coming back here. That was the catalyst for you to run for state rep, because since I think you said that this is mostly state property out there, and is it how you think?
It's state property. A lot of it is already leased to New Orleans. The bill that she passed wants to lease more of it to New Orleans. The bill includes housing, bars, and just turns it over to be this park to be fully developed. And that bill was a catalyst, but what also was another trigger was they're taking our reserves, which could be applied right now to get matching grants from the feds to do environmental projects, to do bike paths and recreation. They are spending those, $500,000, with Mitch Landrieu's former deputy mayor to be a consultant to figure out how to put these more bars out here.
So it sounds to me like because it's state property, but the local elected officials are really using a lot of liberty of this property to profit from their or what their communities profit from. I mean, I know that,
Well, I think it's a risk. I mean, the studies that we've had 4 studies done by the Regional Planning Commission. All of them said this area is now saturated with restaurants. So when you say profit, let's make sure we don't say it's going to profit the city, because it's really a high risk thing to do, like Uptown Square, Lazy Jack. We have places that have failed. So if you've got 4 studies over 15 years that say you're already full of restaurants and bars and you decide to do it, are you doing it to get the federal money to spend, to give to your consultants? And then when I asked to see that contract, they said no. They claimed attorney-client privilege. So one of the things the state can do is pass bills that says, no, all public contracts have to be public. And that's not just for here, that's for everybody.
So just to wrap up this idea, this local issue that was the catalyst for you to jump in this race, you want to, as a state rep, that's one issue of, we got to talk about some other ones, but that's one issue that you want to fix to be able to preserve this area, but also be able to preserve it for the neighborhood.
True. And Bill, it is, I still go to Monroe a lot. So I'm thinking statewide. It's not one issue that was a catalyst. There were several things. The dead zone, I've done a lot of work on that. Coastal restoration, we've done a lot of work on. So
these are things that you've done on your video side,
yes,
on your
but
your
also,
activist side.
I also brought those up 7 years ago when I ran for U.S. Senate, and they're not resolved. I find that in D.C., they've been impeaching and doing other things. A lot of work isn't getting done because so much of it is spent on politics. We still got to address coastal restoration for hurricane protection and so much other stuff. This clearly was a factor, but to say it was made me jump in, there was so many other things that were on my mind that we need to address.
Sounds to me like you've been on a lot of the state issues for a long time. This being the catalyst, now that you're in it, there's a lot of other things that's going on in Louisiana. There's a lot of other things that people think are holding us back. What do you think are some of the major issues that's holding Louisiana back that needs to be fixed?
I actually own an office building in Silicon Valley by Facebook. And one of the ideas I had when I came back is I had friends in Silicon Valley that were helping move their companies to India for call centers. Louisiana has a lot of great colleges. We have a lot of great people here. We're losing those people. They're going other places to work. Why can't we bring those call centers that are in India to Louisiana? And there's a few companies here that we're trying to get going, but we saw recently they failed. Mitch claimed he had a company that opened up on Poydras Street. They're gone. CenturyLink was in Monroe. They're gone. The governor said he got them to stay. What are we doing wrong there? And I think there's some solutions, and that I could reach out to those contacts to look at bringing jobs that are going overseas from California or other places here. People go to Texas, they go to Florida, they're skipping Louisiana. What can we fix? And some of those things are like fixing the water leak. You know the right thing to do, and you can fix it in a week.
That's a great way to put it there, Charles. So what do you think that you can do about it?
We are, our taxes are one. We right now we're talking about our state income taxes. We're sitting around, as somebody said, we're becoming an island where everybody around us is going to no state income tax. We also have to deal with insurance. And living here on the water, my insurance rates are going crazy. There are ways. We had earthquake insurance we dealt with in California. We figured out ways to give people incentives to lower your rates, certain things you could do so you could get a good driver discount.
Right.
You could get a good flood insurance discount. Or your property taxes in California, they're capped at 1% a year increase. Here, I'm seeing people get property tax bills that are huge.
Right.
And they'll be taxed out of it. And that was done in the 1970s in California. So you buy a house, if you're only going to have 1% a year, you don't become a senior citizen and lose your house because you got to come up with $5,000 more in property taxes.
That's right. Well, now the property taxes, but it's also insurance. And as government grows, and it needs more money to sustain, so that's why they pass that down in the way of taxes on the citizens, and that's one of the reasons why we lose a lot of people. What will you do about taxes? How do you feel about taxes?
You got to do the reverse. You don't tax and spend. By stopping the tax money coming in, you can't spend. And one of the big things, and it was a book that I wrote about 7 years ago, I was on a committee that looked at unfunded pension liabilities. And that's something I've been writing about for a long time, is that we keep growing the government, and then these pension liabilities come back. And so in New Orleans, what we saw was that with the police union pensions, they're now being fined because they're not covering them. And that goes back decades. So we have to stop growing these pension problems, liabilities, or else it's going to cause these taxes to go up. And that's a spiral we don't need.
Now, that's something that as a state rep, you individually can't do, but as a state rep, you can bring legislation to the table to try to fix that. But it's require a lot of work with a lot of other elected officials. Are you ready to do that kind of work?
Absolutely. Again, since some of the things that I've done in the last decade have been driving the state. In fact, my family was from Monroe. My parents moved down here. We drove the state every other month to go back to Monroe for family events. So I still do that, and I love the state. So I've met a lot of people. I'm also been president of the Italian Federation of Louisiana for 4 years now. So I've met people in different parts of the state from that Italian connection going out there. And to work with these people to get this done, at the state level, I feel we've got a great opportunity because we have a good situation. I was an oil drilling engineer for a while, and oil and gas is a big part of who we are. So I also understand what offshore is about.
This is quite interesting. What else do you think that you can have something that you can do something about in a major way to solve some of these problems?
Clearly you can work at the help at the federal level too. I mean, one of the things we have to look at is our crime, because we're short police, and actually, we had proposed certain things, even regarding monuments, that we wanted to put up a monument to first responders, and the city of New Orleans said no. I mean, they took down the monument to the National Guard. So if you're going to address certain issues, you have to also realize what can you be doing that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. If you're encouraging people to put up a monument to a fireman or to our police and recruit police, because crime is on everybody's list right now.
Exactly.
And we're not recruiting police. 2020 changed everything, and the city council, I find, has not embraced that. They are going the opposite way. They want to honor really protesting, as opposed to, we have the land right by the World War II Museum, and we proposed putting a monument to first responders there. They said, no, we want to make it about civil rights. And we'll do that at City Hall. And but if you neglect your police and don't recognize them and give them credit, you're going to have problems, and now we are facing that.
So you think maybe recognizing everybody for everything here that they've done right to be able to help another way to solve crime.
You got to get people working together, and we are dividing right now. At the city levels and at the state levels, it seems we are so strong wanting to put our own stakes in the ground that we're realizing that putting a stake in the ground over here, and in the name of inclusion, is actually excluding other people like police and fire.
So you want to find ways to include more people, include everybody in honoring everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
So question, whenever I see government growing, there's oftentimes when, there's things go, when we look to government for solutions, we'll say government grows. But I always think that when government grows, freedom shrinks. What will you do as a state rep to help protect freedom in Louisiana?
One of my biggest things for actually my whole life is we've been, philanthropy, I believe, is how things happen. If you look at things, and we know some great philanthropists in New Orleans, that aren't being recognized. One of them, John McDonough, okay? He leaves all this money for education, and we take down his statues. We get rid of everything that honors and recognizes what he did. We have when you do that, though, in the Wisner Fund, they're suing the Wisner family. People, I think, are motivated to work hard to leave a legacy, which is what the book, I don't think you can see. You can maybe see the bottom of the book in the camera here. But I wrote a book about how to leave your legacy. And the idea was, if you work hard and keep your money, normally you want to leave it to do good. The community foundation, other nonprofit causes, the Boy Scouts, whatever. And if government says, we're going to take it and we're going to give it to our friends, you won't even let you see those contracts.
Right.
Then there's no incentive to even work to make it, because now you're losing it. You don't have the ability one day to leave something that maybe puts your name on a building or does something else where it's great for the community.
So you're trying to help the community find ways to be able to not only be more involved and be respected and honored, bring more people together, but also find people that may want to leave a legacy to help the city in some way.
And we've been very successful at that over the centuries. But yet now we are taxing it so they don't have the money, and we don't recognize, we're dishonoring the people that did stuff. So that's like, if we're thinking about leaving it, maybe you don't want to do something else with it.
So do you think as a state rep, you're going to be able to make these connections on a state level, sitting in that body with 104 other people, in the legislative body?
I agree with that, because like even now, 2 weeks ago, J.P. Morrell, he had a Zoom interview with me. How can you help New Orleans? Who are you them? So you were interacting at the city level here with Jefferson Parish. Have great relationships with those people. And at the state level, you work with your peers to get legislation passed. And I think if we look right now, why I think it's time for a change is, are we better off now than we were 4 years ago? Or going back 8 years ago.
This district and this state.
Exactly. So when I look at things, should I wait till it was an open seat? Or do you run now and say, well, at least let's have a dialogue? It's going against an incumbent as a challenge. But at the same time, I think people look at the last 4 years have not been the best 4 years for Louisiana, or New Orleans, or Jefferson Parish for that matter.
Charles, how can people find out about your campaign? Where can they go to find out some information about you and be able to get a hold of you?
One of the things I have, Bill, is that the website is marsalaforla.com. But over the years, I have built I have 600.
Is it the number 4 or the word 4?
4. Marsala, FORLA.com.
Yeah.
And over the years, we have done over 600 videos, half and half. 300 on Louisiana culture, which includes people working on coastal restoration, dead zone issues, honoring our veterans, first responders, some things we're talking about. And 300 of them are actually on these political ideas. What do we do with the pension funds? What do we do with certain other issues? So from there, you can get to my 2 YouTube channels. One is called AWE News, and the other one is called Charles Marsala, The Smarter Conversation.
So people can go to those sites and see all the videos that you've been doing as a citizen activist, trying to improve not only Louisiana, but our country, but primarily Louisiana. They can see all of your work and how hard you've been working and get a feel for what you're going to do.
Absolutely. A great example is COVID's back right now. As it turns out, I had 5 years with Admiral Brett Giroir. I jokingly said I sat on his right side. I was his right-hand man. And Brett actually came up with the COVID test and got distribution going in the last administration. He came back to town. I interviewed him for an hour. I have an hour interview with Brett Giroir on COVID and what we learned about medical technology as a result of his experience with solving the COVID testing problem.
All right, Charles. Well, we got all the time I think that we have for today. Please, if you know somebody in District
94,
share the video with them, share the interview, let somebody learn more about Charles Marsala, and see if he's somebody you'd like to vote for. And in the meantime, please tune into more of my interviews at William Wallace for America on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and on all podcast apps. Thank you so much.